Hey everyone, and welcome to the Tom's Hardware Show. I'm your host, Sharon Harding, and today we're discussing the RTX 3070 Ti and the award-winning AMD-powered Lenovo Legion 5 Pro. I see you laughing at me, Michelle. It was only a half stutter. I got through it. So as you might be able to tell everyone, we are live and we are taking questions from the audience. So if you have anything you'd like to ask, drop your question into the chat on Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching this, and we'll do some Q&A at the end of the show. So joining me today, we have Tom's Hardware staff writer wonder, Michelle Earhart. How are you, Michelle?
Hi, Sharon. I'm feeling wonderful.
Love it. We also have Tom's Hardware senior graphics editor extraordinaire, Jared Walton. What's going on, Jared?
Woo! This is my new office. That's what's going on. It's
You
not
made
set
it.
up, but it's there.
You made the move. Love it.
Yes.
So
and I've got internet, so that's good things, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like you've even got a little bit of background serenading going on.
That wasn't me. I don't know where the dingling was coming from.
That might have been my dishwasher. But anyway, Jared's been busy, but also doing some good stuff for us, checking out the RTX 3070 Ti, which was released this week with the $599 MSRP. If you can find it, we'll get into that, of course. But that MSRP makes it $100 more than the RTX 3070's MSRP. So Jared, can we check this thing out? Do you have the card with you?
I do. We'll do like a pseudo live unboxing because I actually was set up at my brother-in-law's last week, and so I packed the card back up. So here's the box. Looks just like the other 30 series boxes, and it's a nice little holding thing in here. You got the card. Gotta pull it out of there, and then in here they've got like a little cover, and you get your let's just open that. You got to get your little dongle, the 12-pin to dual 8-pin adapters, which, I mean, honestly, I don't know why Nvidia was even like why they did the 12-pin thing, because no one else is doing it. Like, not a single add-in board partner has done a 12-pin connector. I guess there's like a couple of PSUs that actually have native 12-pin adapter support, but whatever. So you get the card. Differences to note between the 3070 and the 3070 Ti is my 3070 is still in a box in a storage unit. I'm going to hopefully get that either today or tomorrow or over the weekend, and then I'll really start setting up my office. But the 3070 Ti actually looks a lot like the 3080 in terms of you've got this this faceplate here that's solid, and it's got the logo on it. There is no RGB lighting, so this logo does not light up. But you've got the fan on the one side, and then on the back side you've got the through fan. This blows. Yeah, the one I showed on the front blows through and ventilates over here, so you can kind of see as I angle that, you can see that it's see-through, right? Like it just blows straight through. That's supposed to help with cooling. It's like maybe half an inch to an inch shorter. I think it's about half inch shorter than the 3080 Ti Founders Editions, and those had like a little X in trim here. But I think, I don't know how much the change in the fan arrangement. So the 3070 had no logo here. It was just all like this, right? The little grill radiators, and both fans were on the same side. Nvidia says it helps with cooling. I don't know how much. Presumably they did do some A/B testing or some such, but it's a 290 watt card, whereas the 3070 Founders Edition is a 220 watt card, which is shocking when you think about it, because what's the main difference between the two cards is slightly higher clock speeds, and the 3070 Ti has GDDR6X memory running at 19 gigabits per second instead of the 14 gigabits per second on the 3070. So it's a big jump in bandwidth, but 70 watts of power, like what is that? 30% or something increase in power use, and overall performance, like thanks to the higher clocks and thanks to the 2 extra streaming multiprocessors, overall performance was 7 to 11% faster, depending on resolution and game and things like that. So not like an awesome improvement for a 30-watt jump in power. And then you've got the price also went up about 20%. That's the MSRP. Like, let's be real, MSRPs are a joke right now. There's a few cards sold at MSRP by various vendors, but everything else goes out well above MSRP. Like, so Newegg did their shuffle this morning, and it was all 3070 Ti cards, and there were 4 models from. I want to say there was like 1 Gigabyte, 1 MSI. I don't know if there was maybe an Asus and maybe some other company. Anyway, they were all custom cards because the Founders Editions, I think, are only sold through Best Buy. But those were at the $600, $599 price point. And then the next card up was $200 more at, $799? So maybe, yeah, $799 is $200 more. Yeah, so that's a big jump. And then there were some cards that were like, there was an Asus ROG Strix, not liquid cooled, for $999. So it's kind of crazy to see the pricing, and it's like I guess we're getting scalped now by the add-in board partners and resellers and Nvidia, and then the scalpers will actually probably still buy them and sell them on eBay. I wouldn't be surprised if these 3070 Tis are selling for like $1,300 to $1,500 at least on eBay. But the mining performance for Ethereum has been reduced, and it hasn't been cracked yet. So we don't know how long the hash rate limiter is going to stay active. Hopefully indefinitely, right? But that means your Ethereum mining performance is basically half of what it would be. This card, I think, stock, it does about 37 mega hash per second. Overclocking the memory and stuff, you can get it maybe like 41 mega hash per second. And when you consider that, it's like, well, that's basically the same as a 2060. And so, from a mining perspective, this is not a good card right now. I think it would net like $325, $350 a day at current prices. So anyone who bought it for mining purposes, they're still looking at, if you got it for $600, you could still break even in like 6 months at current rates, which could fluctuate and will fluctuate and all that stuff, right? But long term, it's like, no, you'd be better off with a different card most likely. And of course, Ethereum's going proof of stake at some point, and that should reduce mining demand as well. But we hope that with the profitability of mining going down and the supply hopefully increasing, even with the higher MSRP, it's not really selling at MSRP, but we hope maybe in 4 months, maybe early 2022, we might start to see cards selling at closer to the original launch prices. Fingers crossed.
Well, I want to actually ask Michelle about that, because I know you did a story for us this morning looking at the pricing of 3070 Ti partner cards. What is that looking like?
Yeah, so Jared mentioned a lot of what I was going to discuss. I also noticed we have a comment here. Oh, I can't seem to pin it for whatever reason. But we have a comment from Naomi Zach also mentioning the overpriced cards. And that's the big issue with this. Stock is already hard enough to find across the board. If the cards are split even halfway between MSRP $599 cards and these cards that are, $800 to $900, which at that point, I don't know, just buy an RTX 3080, assuming you can find it, which, you're not going to find a 3070 Ti either. So, it's tough. I feel like I'm not sure who these $900, $999 cards are for. Because, at that point, I feel like you might as well go for a more expensive card. And they're, cutting into what could be cheaper cards, which I feel is, this is trying to hit a point in between the 3070 and the 3080.
Yeah, the whole market with graphics cards has just been, it's so messed up, and it's been messed up for what, 6 months at least now. I mean, I guess even since the launch of the 3080, there was just too much demand, and maybe that wasn't from miners, but the demand just from gamers and people wanting a GPU upgrade has been super high. And so it's like 9 months of seeing exorbitant prices. It feels like it's become the norm almost. And so you're like, oh, hey, this one's only $599. I mean, it's not $599 because you can't buy it at that, but it used to be like the 1080 Ti. Someone mentioned that, and they're like, yeah, I'm still rocking that. Those cost they cost, was it 700 at launch or 750? I think it was 700, right? So, that was the top end card that wasn't a Titan card, and it launched at $700. And now we're looking at let's see, there's 3090, 3080 Ti, 3080, and 3070 Ti. So this is the fourth tier card, fourth string card in Nvidia's Ampere lineup, and it's still a $599 card in theory. It's pretty crazy. Like there would have been a time that this would have been like a $450 card, but not in today's market. So hopefully things start to improve. Maybe by the time Lovelace and associated GPUs drop, we might actually be closer to normal prices. But this has been a painful year of graphics card launches where everything sells out and nothing's available and they're all overpriced.
Yeah, I almost feel as if these $900 cards are being more honest with us. Like they're exorbitantly overpricing us, but these MSRP cards are selling so fast that their prices are basically unreasonable anyway.
Yeah.
Because they're just like going to go instantly. So that's not the price you're going to get. We have another comment from Angel. I'm not sure how to pronounce that last name. Reminds me, though, again, on top of these, models availability, what certain stores have available is also going to impact what you can buy. I looked at the store pages for the 3070 Ti across all of the major websites today, and the only stores that I saw with like a decent amount of options were Newegg, which limits everything to its shuffle, and the shuffles are frequently overpriced either through bundles or through the models that they choose to spotlight, and Best Buy, which has the Founders Edition at MSRP, and then a really expensive Tough Gaming model, which is $949, only $50 less than that ROG Strix. I think of Tough Gaming as like the
Tough Gaming
sort of budget cousin.
$100 card, right? Like it at Newegg, it was a $599 reference model, and it's like to see Best Buy selling it at $949. It's just like, oh man.
I
like
almost
I said,
wasn't sure. Is this a different version of that AIB partner? But
there are two Tough models. I think there's a baseline Asus Tough, and then there's the Asus Tough Gaming. But I mean, they're pretty much the exact same design. I think the Tough Gaming has usually like a 50 or whatever megahertz overclock. It's not like super large. And then like the Strix is almost the same design, just, well, maybe it's a little better cooler, but they have RGB lighting and some other changes and such. And Strix we're used to seeing priced very high, but yeah, the Tough Gaming is supposed to be like that's their baseline reference model. They're still fine, and at the right price, I have no problem recommending them. But seeing them priced close to the Strix, I guess, in a normal market, right? You would have Nvidia Founders Edition at MSRP. You'd get the Tough at MSRP, and then the Strix would only be like $50 to $100 above that. And so it's just like the whole craziness the past year and a half of pandemic stuff. It's driven the MSRPs way up from the third-party cards.
Right. It's a shame because it sounds like we're really dunking on these AIB cards, but sometimes they're important. I remember for the 3080 Ti, you were really had some words about the default cooling in the Founders Edition model. So for that one, you would definitely want to go, with a third-party partner.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, so I tested memory temperature is the big factor right now. The GDDR6 memory, 6X memory, runs pretty hot, and then the 3080, 3080 Ti, and 3090, if the card's not designed for it, especially if you fire off like a mining algorithm, you will hit 110 Celsius on the memory, and in gaming I typically saw 102 Celsius, which is still like that's really pretty stinking hot for a chip to run, and I have concerns over like how long it will do that and such. It'll probably last years, but still, I'd rather see it closer to like 90C, which is what you see on like the GDDR6 cards. So the 3070 Ti, I guess like there's only 8 gigabytes, so that's 8 memory modules instead of 10 or 12 that you see on the 3080 Ti. And the result is I saw maximum temperatures of 100 Celsius while doing mining tests. And if you were playing games, then it was like 92 Celsius. So, that's the good news. I don't have concerns with the Founders Edition model on the 3070 Ti like I did with the 3080 Ti. So that's good to see. But at the same time, I'm like, I think a lot of people buying a high-end card like this, they're going to want the bling and the extra features that you get from the third-party custom cards. So
yeah. I mentioned, go on, Sharon.
I was going to say, speaking of third-party cards, I don't know if you guys saw, which you probably did because we cover this on our site, so check it out if you haven't. But MSI actually announced, at least in Asia, a new GT 730 card. Really wonder what you think about that, Jared, buying a GT 730 in this day and age.
It got a lot of traction in terms of like people talking about it, and it's tough to say, is that like, are there still people with a VGA monitor that they're like, hey, I want this card? Or are there just so many people that they're sick of seeing like, hey, I can't buy any decent graphics card. Here's one for $40. It's in Japan, so it's like 4,600 yen, which is like $42 or whatever. But it's like, hey, it's at least a graphics card that works for a low price. The problem is it's a Kepler card. Nvidia is planning on discontinuing Kepler driver support in the near future. Like, I think they're near the end of the road for supporting Kepler in their drivers. And it's not a fast card. I actually, somewhere I have a laptop that's got a GT 750M in it with GDDR5 memory, and it's slow. Like 384 CUDA cores from 2014 is not going to do a lot of performance. And this is the DDR3 model, so it's even slower than the GDDR5 model. But there's enough of a demand for people who are just like, I just need any graphics card. And I kind of scratched my head because, I mean, like, performance of that card isn't really going to be much better than a modern UHD graphics 630 solution, which has been around since Skylake. Well, I guess since Kaby Lake technically, but it's pretty similar to Skylake. So, for 4 years at least, we've had Intel graphics that are close to that level of performance. So I don't know. And AMD's integrated graphics are definitely faster, but if you just need any graphics card, I guess that's the excitement. Or maybe people are just talking about it because they're pissed off about all the sold out, overpriced, good graphics cards, right?
It's definitely a sign of desperate times. But yeah,
I understand the desperation for sure. I'm sitting here running a GTX 1080, but even as I check for stock on the RTX 3000 series cards, I see RTX 2000 cards going for a couple $100 over what they would normally go for. I think part of it is the crypto boom that we're currently experiencing, although that might be a different kind of boom soon, if you catch my drift. And part of it might be, the lack of stock for the 3000 series cards, making the 2000 series cards the realistically modern card for most people. Even the older cards are being impacted on stock and price as well.
Yeah, so we have some questions coming in on the card, so let's get to some of them now. Definitely put in your questions if you haven't already. The first one's from Mano7B, which is just asking, when is the card dropping? It is out, but good luck finding it.
Out.
It's out in all the ways.
It's in Jared's house.
I got one in my house. Actually, while we talk about this is interesting. JPR, John Petty Research, just released their data of GPU sales for the last quarter, and average selling prices have skyrocketed. The actual number of GPUs sold was up like 0.77 million. I think they said 11.77 million dedicated discrete graphics cards were sold in the past quarter, which was more than what was sold in Q4 last year, which, that's the holiday season. So going up is surprising, but it means, supply at least has stayed constant. They've sold a bit more. Average selling prices of high-end GPUs have basically, did they say doubled or quadrupled or something?
About quadrupled, yeah.
I mean, like, that's crazy in the past year or so. But I was kind of running some numbers in my head and going, so if there's basically been 34 million discrete graphics cards sold in the last 9 months since the Ampere and RDNA 2 cards came out. And then I'm like, well, how many of those are actually Ampere and RDNA 2, and how many of them are Turing? Turing's back in production. I don't know if you guys knew that, but Nvidia is actually manufacturing Turing because it's on 12 nanometer and they can get wafers there, and there's enough demand for it. I think they're mostly going into the cryptocurrency mining product, or whatever that CMP stands for. But then the other interesting fact is RTX 3050 is also out, but I've been told like it's not out on desktop because they simply can't get enough volume. Like, laptops don't sell as many well, that's not even high end, but they don't sell as many GPUs as desktops for a card like that. So if the 3050 launched and it was like a $250, $300 card, or the 3050 Ti, Nvidia would need millions of cards available, and they basically have said they just don't have that supply yet. They've got a shortage of wafers from TSMC or Samsung or whoever, and so they're just not launching it for desktop yet. So it's kind of interesting. We've got all of these factors. It's like they're selling every card they get, every GPU they can make, even old GPUs, and they're still being snapped up. But hopefully in the next 6 months, maybe things will calm down.
One thing I want to discuss before I forget is just like the way these cards are being launched as well. So the 3080 Ti was interesting because Best Buy did a physical launch for that. But then now we have the 3070 Ti, and that is back to online only. So I have to wonder what happened there. Was it a debacle? There's definitely enough interest. Was it just not something that they wanted to do? Are they experimenting? I was hoping we'd see stores start to branch out a bit more in how they handle these, preferably not with a lottery to get a buying ticket like Newegg. But, I guess stores are still experimenting. A lot of what we've seen recently is actually retailers on launch day will wait until the afternoon to even make their products available.
So we also have a question from Naomi Zach related to all of this. So Naomi says, I notice huge price differences between standard and overclock 3070 Ti cards. Asus TUF 3070 Ti $599, overclocked Asus ROG Strix $999. Does the huge price difference mean high performing bins are rare? Jared, I feel like this is one for you.
Yeah, I would say the answer is no. I don't think it means the bins are any more rare than they normally would be. I would assume like the $599 cards are probably contractually required by Nvidia, that they probably told every add-in board partner, you must have one model sold for $599 on launch day or you're not getting any GPUs. And so they do that. But what we don't know is how many have to be sold at the lower price. So, I bet Asus, for example, could probably sell maybe 75% of the cards as a factory, or the chips as a factory overclocked card, and sell it for more money. It might even be 80-90%. Like every GPU I've ever tested, you get the card, and if you manually overclock, you can usually eke out at least an extra 100 megahertz, and that goes for your weakest cheapo cards. Like I had, I don't want to throw them under the bus, but I will. I had a couple of old Zotac GTX 970 cards that they were reference clocks, and I could overclock them a bit. And now that they're 6-7 years old, they don't overclock at all. But there was headroom at launch, so I think Asus could have sold them as higher performance chips. The highest performance, the stuff that would go into Strix, maybe those are only like 25% of chips. But I think it's more a factor of Asus wants to sell the cards at $1,000 or $900 if they can, but they were contractually required to have a lower cost version available. It's if you go back to the 2080 Ti back in 2018, right? So that was a $1,200 part for the Founders Edition, and Nvidia said there will be $999 cards available. Those were never really available in quantity. AVGA had like a 2080 Ti Black Edition that ran reference clocks and was $999, and I kept an eye on that for like a year and a half, and it would come in stock very briefly and immediately sell out, and then it wouldn't show up again for like weeks or even a month, and then like a few more would be sold. No one ever said how many of the cheap cards were sold, but you know, for all intents and purposes, 2080 Ti was never a $1,000 part. It was always $1,200 until it got replaced. And I kind of feel like we're seeing the same things here, where you know, the 3080 is not a $700 card, the 3070 is not a $500 card, and the 3070 Ti is not a $600 card. There are a handful of cards sold at those prices, and then the vast majority will sell at marked up, factory overclocked versions costing 10, 20, 30% more until demand drops. Like, that's just the nature of the beast. That's what we're going to see.
Okay, I do want to get to Michelle's laptop, but let's squeeze in another quick question from Tatar Khan, and then we'll get to more at the end of our show. Tatar asks, wouldn't these TI cards be surpassed by the RTX 4000 series in several months? Why even chase now? My initial thought is we don't know it's going to be better, right? Come RTX 4000 series.
I mean, you can assume it will be better, right? Like, that's a safe bet.
You know what happens when you assume, Jared?
Yeah,
That's what my father would say.
Right. But here's the thing. So if you look at the 30 series versus a 20 series, so a 3070 matches a 2080 Ti. It's actually a little bit slower in a lot of cases, but relatively close. So we could say like there will be a 4070, say, that will probably deliver 3080 Ti levels of, well, I guess 3090 levels of performance. So, you know, drop two product notches numbers off. So the 70 series will beat the 90, the 60 series will match the 80, the 50 series won't exist for a while because they always launch late. But Lovelace, so there's Hopper and Lovelace are coming from Nvidia. Hopper was originally thought to be like the whole line. The thinking now is Hopper will be the data center version. So Hopper is like Volta, and then the consumer versions, the RTX 4000 series, are going to be Lovelace is the code name. Don't know if that's going to be 7 nanometer or 5 nanometer or 6 nanometer. It could be any of those. It probably isn't going to come out in spring of 2022, which means we're really still close to maybe a year away from the RTX 4000 series is my bet. It could come earlier, but I mean, unless the manufacturing supply chain can really ramp up production, I don't think RTX 4000 or RX 7000 or whatever the next gen things are called, I don't think they're going to come out in a few months. And then it's going to be a question of like price to performance. So, you know, if there's an RTX 4070 that outperforms an RTX 3090, how much will Nvidia charge and how much will be available? And we can hope that they charge like $500, $600 like the 30 series in theory is, but you know, we just don't know until it actually happens. And it's worth noting that like the cost of making these GPUs, even if the chip gets smaller, like 7 nanometer is way more expensive than Samsung's 8 nanometer, and 5 nanometer is still more expensive than TSMC's 7 nanometer. So a smaller die is cheaper on the same node than a larger die, but a smaller 5 nanometer die might actually end up costing more than a larger 7 nanometer die. So we'll just have to wait and see what actually happens. But you know, they're all planning these things. I just don't know how much better they'll be or when they'll come out.
Very fair. And then I want to bring up this next comment from T. Anthony Price because it's actually a good segue into Michelle's laptop review. And you could say this about several gaming desktops and laptops released this year. They're pointing, T. Anthony Price is pointing to the HP Omen desktop that has an RTX 3080. And they're saying with the prices of the cards themselves, isn't it worth it to just upgrade your whole rig? And I'd say, you know, that's definitely a consideration. That's why Michelle and our colleague Andrew has been reviewing a lot of gaming pre-built desktops and laptops. They are definitely a viable option to upgrade your system if you can't get the parts you need for a build. So with that said, Michelle, you just reviewed the Lenovo Legion 5 Pro. I know you liked it because you gave it the Tom's Hardware Editor's Choice Award, which for those who don't
Where's
know,
our
that
animation?
I'm working on it next week. So as for those who don't know, we give those awards to products that we think are the best in its respective category. So Michelle, the Legion 5 Pro you reviewed has an AMD Ryzen 7 5800 CPU, an RTX 3070, and a 16-inch 1440p screen with a 165 hertz refresh rate. So with those specs, it was going for $1,900. What else can you tell us about this machine, Michelle?
Sure. So it's a little heavy. The first thing you'll notice about this laptop is it's a little on the bulky end. This laptop is a little over an inch thick. Let me close that real quick. But I think it's worth it because if you compare it to thinner laptops with the same level of power, it's much cheaper than you'll get with like a Razer Blade 17. It's a little more expensive than the Alienware Ryzen Edition R15, but I think what you gain in that trade-off is you gain this great 1610-inch 1440p screen. You gain power level that is, you know, not about the same. Only came in second place in our tests to the Razer Blade Pro 17. That costs a little less than $100. A couple $100 less, and you get this wonderful keyboard, which is almost identical to a ThinkPad keyboard. Lenovo has a lot of fans for their ThinkPad keyboards because they have this sort of unique key shape that has a concave dent in the center and sort of curves around the bottom that makes it really easy to touch type. Plus, it's just a very nice, pretty laptop. It doesn't have per key RGB. It has zone RGB, but I don't really mind that. And it's got a new...
you don't even have to worry about the track point on that.
Yeah.
Bring out the pitchforks, people.
It's got a new design on the back, which I like a little bit more. It's got the Y that Legion used to have before it changed to using its name as its lid logo. I kind of prefer this because it's just a little bit more minimal. The one thing that I don't like a ton about this laptop, aside from the bulk, is which is making it a little difficult to talk, so sorry if I stumble a little bit, is the port selection on the left-hand side is very thin. You've got this one USB-C port and the audio jack, but otherwise all the ports are on the right-hand side, but more so on the back. I'm someone who, when I game on a laptop, likes to put my mouse on the left-hand side and then put it around the laptop. So that's a little bit of a pain. Also, depending on how your desk setup is set up, it might make connecting the power cord a bit of a pain. But I think for a price to performance ratio, this is probably the best Ampere laptop that we've looked at yet. You know, it doesn't cost $2,600 like the Razer Blade Pro, but you only lose like 9 to 10 frames in the most extreme cases. And you get a lot of great mobile first options. Part of the reason I really talked about that screen and that keyboard a lot is, you know, with a desktop, you can swap those out, but with a laptop, you're stuck with what you've got. So they're a lot more important. And not only is this laptop powerful, but using it is just a joy, I think.
You know, that laptop ticks all the right boxes for me. Like, I used to review laptops for a long time over at Anantech, and I wanted a 1440p good display in like a 16 or 17-inch laptop for years, and they just didn't exist. And so to see like 1440p 165 hertz, like that's a huge win in my book, because 4K on a laptop, it's just not really necessary or viable. It's, you know, it's either too small, so you have to use DPI scaling. And even if you do run 4K, like even an RTX 3080 struggles at 4K, especially a mobile RTX 3080, because they're not the same as the desktop 3080. It's really like the mobile 3080 is like a desktop 3070. So it's not that you can't play at 4K, but I'm like, yeah, 1440p is a way better solution. So that's like a really great gaming laptop in my book. Is, you know, it checked all the right boxes. I would love to have one of those, but I don't really need it. So
Hey, you got a new house, Jared. Stick with that for now.
Sorry, I couldn't reference these while I was holding the laptop up. But, you know, as for that screen, it's also really bright. It came in at 472 nits average in our testing, which is almost excessively bright. It's not uncomfortable. It's just like almost 100 nits larger than what I'm used to, even on the best laptops. It's got a 82% DCI P3 rating, which is, you know, respectable. I found it had really deep blacks and somewhat vivid colors, which at 1440p, I think is fine for me, because the resolution is going to make up what the screen doesn't. And then, you know, in gaming, you know, and Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which is one of the more demanding games that we tested, on its full HD benchmark, it got 80 FPS versus Razer Blade Pro 17's 86 FPS. And that trend kind of continued throughout all of our games. And I think, you know, if you're spending about $700 less and you're only losing that much FPS, it's kind of hard to justify paying that extra price. Plus, one other thing I didn't mention earlier is this has a webcam in the top, like most gaming laptops, although that's not guaranteed. But one thing that Lenovo likes to do on its productivity laptops is put a shutter on the webcam. We haven't seen that as often in Legion before, and they couldn't fit a shutter into this bezel. So what they did is on the right-hand side, there's a little switch that you can flick, and that will physically cut off power to the webcam. You know, it's not as nice as having a physical shutter. It doesn't give you the assurance of having something, you know, in front of the webcam, but it's essentially the same experience.
Yeah, and so to bring us back to just that, like, because one of the things we've talked about before is, you know, getting AMD designed and more premium design laptops, and to hear about that good screen and that good keyboard, it's pretty exciting. And with the 1440p, I'm with Jared. It's pretty exciting to see that coming out more. I feel like that's a more like considered option to give. Like, it's so flashy to say we have a 4K screen or we have 4K OLED, but what's really catering to consumers and what we're capable of handling and leveraging to the max, 1440p is a really nice sweet spot. So we do have a question from Naomi. I don't think we could truly answer this because I don't think we've reviewed this laptop. I just did a look, but we're going to bring it up because it's a sweet comment and question for their mother. So Naomi said, how does this machine, the Lenovo, Michelle, compare with the Asus ROG Zephyrus G15? That machine has a 5900HS from AMD, also a 3070, also a 165 hertz QHD screen, claimed 100% DCI P3, but I would be very surprised to see that, honestly, in a gaming laptop. And Naomi says they got it for their mom for Mother's Day, and now they're worried they didn't get her the perfect gift.
You know, that's so
a very
sweet.
nice child.
Yeah.
We can't talk definitively about that because I haven't reviewed it. One of the things that I liked about this laptop that might give it a slight edge is that 16:10 aspect ratio. I just think it's really nice in the mobile format, especially for productivity. But for a gaming laptop, oh, sorry, Jared.
I said, so is it a 2560 by 1600 resolution?
Yes, this laptop, the Legion 5 Pro, has a 2560 by 1600.
Man, I haven't seen that since my old 30-inch monitor went away.
It's becoming more common in laptops, but one thing that the Asus laptop might have over the Lenovo laptop, that points to another comment we got from Dave Carson, is the Lenovo laptop, while I was reviewing it, just like within a few days, just casually stock just kept dropping. We
Oh,
mentioned
wow.
earlier that people are going for pre-builts and laptops to get these RTX cards because they can't get them on their own. But even with those, you know, the stock isn't guaranteed. That's not a common situation we've seen in the laptops we've been reviewing. You know, if you're willing to pay enough money, you can usually find one. So I'm surprised to see this is the case with Lenovo. They did release it recently, so I assume there's going to be more stock coming out soon. But a quick search right now shows that the what was the laptop that Naomi mentioned? The Asus ROG Zephyrus G15 does seem to be in stock. And you know, I don't think this would have been the case at Mother's Day. So you're probably good, Naomi. I don't even think this laptop was out during Mother's
And hopefully
Day.
the Asus has the ports on the left side where they belong.
Yes. That's the biggest complaint I have about this laptop.
I
It's
really
big,
don't like ports
it's
in the
heavy,
back.
and it's got ports on the back.
Yeah. I'm like at a small desk, and everything that I could cram against the wall or into a corner saves me at least like 1 more inch here and there. So to have those ports jutting out and eating up an inch or so of my desk is like stressful. But yeah, let's
First
see.
world problems, right?
I know I'm horrible. So let's see if we have any more questions. Yeah, but yeah, you could check out Michelle's review. I didn't realize it was out of stock, but I guess that's the name of the game this year. Consoles too. So but I think you're right. I think laptops are a little bit better. And there are just so many different models, right? Like it's not
Right.
only 2 consoles that everyone's going after, a handful of cards
We
everyone's
tend
going
to,
after.
you know, we give our Editor's Choice Award to the laptops that we think are the best in the category, but we tend to swap out those awards pretty frequently, just because it's a very fast-moving market and they're always, you know, one-upping each other. Usually it's just a matter of which laptops release when. Frequently Alienware gets the award, but not first, because Alienware comes in with their laptops a little bit after the competition.
A little inside info. That's pretty cool to know. So let's get into some Q&A. Angel asks, Angel Limber, water-cooled cards, are they really better at cooling GPUs?
If they're
Jared?
done right. I mean, like, so fundamentally, it's like, so you take a card like this, and you know, this is what it's like 10 inches long roughly, and you know, 5 or whatever inches tall. And if you do like a 240 millimeter radiator, that would be, you know, sizably larger than the card itself, and so you get more cooling performance. I mean, I've had the old AMD R9 Fury X, and that thing ran very quiet and cool for the most part. I mean, I know some people had problems with pumps at launch, but you know, they do tend to run quiet. I had like an MSI, what did they call those? They're Seahawks. I should know that. I used to live in Washington, the Seattle Seahawks, right? They had their Seahawk versions, or Seahawk X, or whatever they call them. And I had like a 2080 or 2080 Ti, or maybe it was a 1080. I don't even remember anymore, but definitely ran cooler, and the fans didn't have to spin as fast. But you know, it's not like required to go liquid cooling, and it does cost a lot more money to build that in there. And then I don't really like liquid cooled cards for most people, because I like liquid cooled CPUs because you don't swap those very often. I swap cards all the time, whatever. But you know, if you've got your 240 or 280 or 360 millimeter cooler across the top of your case, now you add in a water cooled or liquid cooled graphics card, and it's like, oh, now I need to find another either 140 millimeter or 120 millimeter or 240 millimeter space for a radiator. And that means you're stuck with pretty massive cases, like the case I've got sitting to my left here that you can't see. That's my main test bed, and it's a monster. Like, it weighs 40 pounds, 50 pounds, I don't know. Liquid cooling, though, it's just a matter of, you know, it's more component cost, and there's points of failure, like can the pump go out now, or the fans as well. But I I've used a liquid cooled card in the past for quite a while, and the fans never had problems just because they could be larger and they didn't have to spin as fast as the fans you usually get on a graphics card, because the graphics card mounted fans are usually limited to about 92 millimeter. I don't know, some people may have done larger fans in the past, but then you end up with this massive card that's sort of hard to deal with on its own. So it's a little of, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I generally prefer just the air-cooled cards because they're easier to deal with. But if you are after lower temperatures, a good liquid-cooled card will hopefully drop those end noise levels at least, 5 to 10 Celsius compared to a straight air cooling card.
So here's another question that we probably can't really answer because we haven't tested the product, but I do think it's interesting. Elite QB Rogers asked if we had any thoughts on the Gigabyte 3070 Ti because they were actually selected in the Newegg Shuffle. So we haven't tested that, Jared. You've only tested the Founders Edition thus far.
Right.
They do ask if you have any knowledge or thoughts. I don't know if you have any general thoughts on Gigabyte cards, or you won the shuffle, just run with it. I don't know.
So here's my general thoughts is, first of all, it's an 8 gigabyte card. And so the coolings of the memory is less difficult than like your 10 or 12 gigabyte 3080 Ti. Gigabyte, I have tested their Eagle card in the past. The 3090 Eagle it basically tied the Founders Edition in performance, even though it had a theoretically higher factory overclock. So Paul uses the 3090 Eagle in his CPU test bed now. I sent that to him. I think Gigabytes are fine. I believe, I don't have it in hand yet, but I believe Gigabyte is sending me a 3070 Ti for review. It might be a 3080 Ti though. It's tough to keep track of who's sending me what. In general though, I'm like, I don't really have concerns with Gigabyte or EVGA or Asus or MSI or really any of the companies. Like, if you get their really cheap models, sometimes they're a little questionable, but I think for a 3070 Ti, you should be perfectly fine going with the Gigabyte. The bigger question is, like, I don't know, is that the $599 card? Like, if you can get it for $599, buy it. Like, literally, worst case, if you decide you don't like it, I bet you can sell that on eBay for over $1,000. So
not that we would support such a thing.
I mean, like, I don't like I know it's kind of lousy, but I'm like, well, gosh, if you get a card and you try it and you say, I don't like this, right now it's really easy to sell it off to someone else and even turn a profit if you want, or you can be nice and just sell it for, the $600 plus tax plus eBay 14% fees or whatever. So,
Father's Day is coming up too.
Yeah, you could send it to me. I'm a father. I'll review it for you.
If you don't get it, it's just gonna stay in Newegg's warehouse. So
I often wonder, like, how often the winners of the shuffles don't buy what they won. Like, I've entered almost every Newegg shuffle, and there was one that it's funny, I got selected and told I was won the opportunity to purchase like I think it was a 5950X and motherboard or something. I was like, yeah, I don't actually want to purchase that, but hey, I got selected. But the thing is, I didn't even get the notification until the purchase window had closed.
Wow.
So it's like eBay's shuffles they're a bit of a snafu. Oh, it's the $849 version.
Yeah, they're getting it for $849.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have a hard time, like, anything over $700 for a graphics card still feels like too much. But if you don't have a good card and you need it, I'd probably still do it. And if you can't, or if you decide you don't want it, even if you don't go with eBay, like selling it on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or something like that, you can probably recover the cost at the very least.
Great. So next up, honestly, this might be one of my favorite comments. Naomi's killing it today. First with the Mother's Day, and now with this. Naomi says they're building a replacement for their FX 8370 rig. Would Miss Earhart give me props for pairing with an Asus Gundam-themed motherboard?
Yes, I would give you props. We were talking about those components earlier today, and I almost brought them up earlier in the show when we were talking about, why try to get a card on its own as opposed to getting it in a pre-built. And part of the answer is you can do cool things like that if you build, from the ground up instead of in a pre-built. Granted, you can also strip whatever components you want out of a pre-built. But then you have all these extra components that you're going to have to store away or sell. And it's just a whole hassle. Wouldn't it be nice to just get what you need and then, put it together with your custom Char Zaku motherboard, but whatever.
You got to send her
love
pictures
it.
when you finish building it, Naomi.
Absolutely. Maybe you could put it in that case behind you. Great.
Just send me the PC. We do have another comment that I want to discuss.
Yeah.
Go on.
Who is it from? I'm just looking to see if we had any more.
The Angel Lambert. Yeah. So I just wanted to discuss this real quick because there is a laptop like that came out recently.
Let's just read the comment for those who might be listening. Angel said, I wish someone would design a laptop with a powerful GPU inside a dock, and when undocked, a lightweight lasting laptop. Wait, that does, yeah. Isn't that like go on, Michelle.
The Asus ROG Flow X13, which was reviewed by my colleague, Andrew, is pretty much exactly that. It's got a proprietary dock with it that has an RTX 3080. And then inside it, when you take the dock off, it's got what is it? I clicked the wrong tab, 1650 Max Q. We actually had issues with this laptop in that when you get the dock, which is sold separately, it's pretty expensive, more so than just getting a laptop with a 3080 in it. And also that dock is proprietary. So you're not going to be able to use it with any other laptop, and we're not sure if Asus is going to release more laptops that use that dock. This isn't the only eGPU that we've seen. Alienware has a bunch of eGPUs, but we also saw recently news that Alienware is discontinuing its proprietary eGPU connector. So, we tend to be wary about eGPUs here, but they do exist.
Yeah.
So I just dropped the link of that. Sorry, I was just saying I just put the link to that laptop, the Asus ROG Flow X13, in the chat, so you can take a look at it and see if it's what you have in mind. What were you going to say, Jared?
I was saying the hard thing with eGPU is usually they're connected by a 4-lane PCI Express, which presents a bit of a bottleneck, and then like the costs. A lot of the eGPU enclosures can cost $400 without a GPU, $350, $400. It's like, so, that's a long way toward buying just a desktop PC. So I kind of sit there and go, I'm in the camp of, if you want a productivity portable laptop and you want a gaming PC that you can use at home, I'm just like, just build a desktop, because net result is you might spend a couple $100 more at most, but then you have a better desktop and you have a better laptop. And yes, you have to sync your files or whatever between them, but that's not too difficult. So that's what I do anyway. Like the laptop I'm on right now has it's got an MX 330 in it, I think. So, it's not at all a gaming laptop, but when I go on the road, I don't need a gaming laptop usually, and I'm happy to play my games on my desktops.
What a surprise. Tom's Hardware says, why don't you just build a PC?
Buy both.
I mean, I'll also say you can just get a Nintendo Switch, which will probably give you a better experience because it'll be less janky.
Yep.
Not as powerful, but the games are good.
You know what chip is inside a Nintendo Switch? Here's one for you, Michelle.
It's an Nvidia Tegra.
Yeah, it's basically the same chip that was in the Nvidia Shield tablet and Shield TV devices, which is kind of interesting. Those chips sort of failed as a tablet device and even as the Shield TV, but they've sold millions and millions of them as the Nintendo Switch. So
Nintendo got it going on. Nobody
I still wish I want an upgraded Shield, man.
You do?
Well, I just want an upgraded, imagine, I think those chips were they 28 nanometer? I don't know if they were 20 or 16 or 18. I think they were 28 nanometer chips. So it's like those are ancient. Like, imagine what Nintendo could do if they got like a 7 nanometer chip right now in a
Nintendo
Switch.
always, like, their thing is lateral use of existing tech, though.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying
Since
though,
the
I'm
Game Boy.
like even if it's not faster, like you should be able, if they drop to 7 nanometer chip, for example, yes, it would cost more, but like you could get a Nintendo Switch that would probably get double the battery life. I would love to see that.
Double your Mario Kart.
Switch
I
Pro.
love
People
it.
have been clamoring for a Switch Pro for years now. There's always rumors. There was one 2 weeks ago. Whatever. This isn't the Switch show, but we should do a Switch show.
Well, if that comes out, maybe we can do one. Well, awesome. I've had a great time today. Thank you for all your questions. And to everyone who's been watching, don't forget to like us, please, on Facebook, YouTube, everywhere you see us. Just like us, put thumbs all over us. We also make every show available as a podcast if you'd like to listen to it later. So definitely check out Jared's RTX 3070 Ti review. We have all the benchmarks up now. Same thing with the Lenovo Legion 5 Pro review done by Michelle over here. So thank you both for stopping by. That is our show. We'll see you next Thursday.